What's up, man? I missed you. It's been a long time.
Miss you too. It's been a long time without you, my friend. Oh, what's the name of the song? The Charlie Puth song stuck in my head now.
My heart just melted.
A long time. Okay, I don't remember the lyrics.
So today's topic, and welcome to season 2, episode 2. And Aaron, this topic was really inspired by um, me watching a newscast during the
Oh,
break
interesting.
where they spoke about the various technology and events that they're having to display this technology in Dubai. Some of it seemed really cool. I basically texted Aaron that night. I was like, we have to investigate this a little further, find a few articles, maybe understand a bit of the historical background, and how it led up to becoming one of the most urbanized cities in the world, along with its future, what to
Yeah.
expect out of its future. So let's get into
So
it. We
happy New
found,
Year. Also, happy New
yeah.
Year to everybody, because it is our first episode in 2021. A lot of exciting things to
Was
look
the
at.
episode with James in 2020, like before the new
Yeah, it
year?
was in 2020.
Damn. Okay, so this is officially 2021's first episode.
Yeah,
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
looking forward to it too. And yes, Dubai is an interesting city. And I'll be honest, I didn't know much about it until Mo sent me the article. And I'm like, what's happening in Dubai? And then I started doing some research, finding some articles, making some speculation and speculative theories. But I realized I have to do a better job and understand the history behind it.
Should we give the
So we're going
background
to start
story?
with we'll give a background story because this is something I didn't know until I guess yesterday. Dubai started off in the fifth and seventh centuries after death. So it dates back to about 3000 BC. And so wait, that doesn't add up. 3000 BC it started, and then it also became a very important trade route connecting Oman to Iraq
Hmm.
in the fifth and seventh centuries. So in the years 400 to 600. The whole city was based on pearling, fishing, and building boats. So innovation was always at the center of the city. And that's something important for what it's like now. And then in 1793, according to this website, um, the people of the Bani tribe, which is one of the tribes of Dubai, they rose in numbers. And based on world history, we know what happens when the masses rise. There's they start taking over the power. When they start taking over the power, there's riots and protests, and there's conflict between the different tribes. Um, and then also due to the height of the British Empire, the British rulers also ruled with the leaders of the Bani tribe, and this led to a rise of economic activity in Dubai. And it has a lot of pearls. That's why it's been important historically. People visit the world to see these pearls, or visit Dubai to see the pearls. But with in 1902, there seems to have been a massive amount of Arab settlers and Iranian traders that settled in the area. And then what happened was oil was discovered, and money just kept going up and up and up and up.
So it's essentially no surprise that the oil business is the what made them kickstart, and they did expand into other businesses, and they're continuing to expand their economy into other focuses that will be talked about later during in this podcast. And this is when we go into modern Dubai. Aaron, do you want to take this, or should I go on with this?
You want to talk to so Mo? Just a quick question before we continue. You've been to
Yeah.
Dubai, right? I haven't had that privilege. How many times have you been to Dubai?
So I've honestly, Aaron, most of my trips to Dubai have been just layovers, going in between from whenever I would travel to Pakistan, Dubai would be the second last stop we would make. Have a layover for a few hours. But the times that I've actually been to Dubai when I've visited for more than a week, it has been a couple of times. And the last time I went was about 4 to 5 years ago. So, and there's a lot of things I observed with that city. It's very artificial, in my opinion. I just think that it I can consider it a bit too artificial, which I'm not the biggest fan of personally, just because I find that I whenever I visit a different country or a different city, I want to see the culture behind it. I want to see where everything stemmed from.
Right.
I feel like the way Dubai represents their culture and their history, it's sort of hidden with these designs. And don't get me wrong, it's really cool. A lot of foreigners who visit, or a lot of people who've seen it just based on its pictures, seen on the sites, the Burj Khalifa, they and based on even their amusement parks, like did you know they had a Ferrari roller coaster? Or they still
I
have
didn't know
it?
that. They have a
Apparently it's
Ferrari
one of the
roller coaster.
fastest roller coasters in the world. I don't know if any other theme parks have beaten their speed yet, but at one time, like this was a huge hype, and
Yeah,
people
I
would
could
literally just go
imagine
to Dubai just to ride
for the
that, literally
Ferrari for the
from
roller
nearby.
coasters.
It,
Okay, to
so
get to ride the Ferrari roller coaster makes sense.
it so and like look, everything is great there, and I have a few family friends who are living there who say that just life is great. The opportunities there are amazing. Uh, And it's funny because I felt like we've all heard about Dubai from a tourist point of view, right? That it's a very
Yeah,
attractive city to visit, that it's we got to go there at least one time in our lives. And I do believe it's one place that everyone should visit at least once. I don't think
for
it's
sure.
worth visiting multiple times. Um, but I find the city a little bit, as I said before, heavily artificial. And I just wanted to dig deeper because I saw this recent newscast and I wanted to talk about sort of lead up to like the new technologies that are being brought there and how they got implemented there so quickly. The rate of
Yeah,
urbanization, it's insane. So
yeah. The rate
that's
of urbanization is insane, and if you look at the numbers, Dubai and the United Arab Emirates are one of the leading cities, and in terms of urban development, you see the numbers behind it, and it's highly an urbanized area. Like they often rank it near Vatican City as it being highly urbanized, and like this is a stat that shocked me, and it just proves to what extent what's happening. Transit covers 84.8% of the city. That's a very high amount, right? And that's part of what we're very interested in. There's so much transport and technology in Dubai, and we just wanted to know more about why this is and what it means for us as planners.
yeah, and often comparing where we're living now, which is in the West, in North America, and how we are considered one of the forefronts of technology, our transportation infrastructure, and how essentially, I think people look at us from the East as examples of how they would want to be urbanized. But now I think we're sort of seeing a flip here because with what Dubai's been doing and the milestones that they have reached throughout the last 30 years, which we have a list that we wanted to sort of present to you guys, which and these pinnacle moments in their history, starting from the 1970s to now, it sort of gives you this timeline gives you a good amount of information which telling you that how fast they have developed. And I wanted to start with this, and this is one thing that I forgot to mention when you were asking me about my experiences. So 1971 Dubai International Airport opened. This
I'm
airport
guessing
is
that's where
huge,
you
man.
flew in. Yeah,
This
huge.
airport is huge, dude.
Like, how
Like,
huge are we talking? Like, how are you getting around? Because,
oh
like,
my
if
god,
you talk
bro. Like,
Atlanta, you're like taking a train between terminals. What was the deal at Dubai?
dude, so okay, now for the I want to compare this to the Montreal context, right? And mostly because university students are listening to our podcast, people within our department. Think about Bonaventure, but the whole Bonaventure, talking about Place Mahi to the train station and to where you can grab the metro and grab the rush hour buses that go towards the South Shore. That's already big in itself. Actually, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the even a better example, right? The underground connections we have between all the malls. Okay, all the way
Oh,
starting
so
from
so
Montreal
you're talking
Trust.
like Montreal Trust all the way through Eaton Center, all the
The
way to
the
Bonaventure.
underground connection, right?
So literally a couple, like really couple, like this is the biggest underground network in the world, like one of the biggest in the world, right? The Réseau. And
Dude, this
what's
airport,
the size?
can we, I'm just gonna go out and say that I think Dubai's airport is two times that.
Two times Montreal's underground. Wow. Okay.
Like you could literally go to Dubai just to go to the airport, and that's that's good enough, man. I'm telling you, like the experience is actually unreal, and you're just going to be fascinated by the sights you see, the level of architecture detail, even the aroma. Like everywhere you go, there's just a pleasant scent.
That's awesome.
It's crazy, and you know I don't think we've ever spoken about this in how much smell. Have you ever discussed this in class? Because I've never heard this before.
So that's something that we've discussed in class. Like when you're planning spaces, right? Whether it be Gorilla Park, whether it be Coffee Park in NDG, one thing that you talk about is you always talk about like how superficial you're creating these spaces and how planned they are, like how everything is done for a reason. But one thing that we often ignore is smell. We very much ignore smell all the time. So yeah, it's interesting to see that there's a different combination of smells. And like if you walk into Atwater Market or Zontola Market, or you're walking up the streets of Little Italy, those
Mhm.
smells aren't planned. They're just natural and happen.
Yeah, like I would say Dubai's aroma and the smell whenever you walk into a room. And this is not only with the airport, this is outside of the airport as well. When you enter a hotel, when you enter the mall, right? For a certain period of time, you're going to feel this really, really nice aroma, just really pleasant. You want to be there. And it's more planned, definitely. It's not natural.
Okay,
So,
that's
and
really cool.
it's it's insane. And also another cool attractive feature that I've seen that we spoke about yesterday was, I think it's at the Emirates Mall in Dubai, is they actually have a indoor skiing, a
Right.
little indoor ski resort there.
So yeah, this is for Montrealers. This is going to be the equivalent of Tremblant or like Bromo or Le Massif, but basically it's a big indoor shopping center with the one run chairlift or a couple of runs at least, and it's all indoors, which is really interesting because based on the climate, they're kind of in the middle of the desert and they have an indoor ski hill. Just like a great innovation.
So, and I don't remember if it's actual genuine snow. I don't think it's real snow.
So it's like man made.
It's man-made. And like obviously us living in Canada, living in Montreal, Quebec, nobody would, I don't know how attractive a feature that would be here. I don't think that's a feature. I think it would actually be a very terrible idea if you tried bringing something like that there. But in their context, it makes sense. Hot places,
Yeah.
you're all round throughout the year. It makes sense. We would want to bring this over here. It's just a cool feature. It's one of those, you know, I feel like Dubai has a lot of features and attractions that are just memorable or just
You want,
surprise you.
I'm gonna go about and like name some. They have a 3D printed office and it's called the Office of the Future. It only took 2 days to build. For those 3D printing buffs out there, you can use your 3D. Well, you can't use yours. They have like these massive scale printers, but there's a building built in 3D. And like on the note of 3D printing in Dubai, by 2030, they want 25% of their new buildings to be made from 3D printed materials. So that's like a massive amount. Or like in terms of transport, they have so many different modes of transport, and this is what makes it really interesting and compelling to look at as a city. They have buses, transit like buses, metros, sky trains, whatever, but they also have passenger drones that they're in the middle of testing right now. They have these things that are currently in development called skypods, where there's the unibike and unicar, and it's all based on a grid. There's flying taxis. I saw plans for a skyway, which looks like a gondola that carries up to 50,000 passengers an hour, and this skyway has 2-second headways. So 2 seconds, then it stops for 10 seconds, and then 2 seconds later, the next car is there. That's amazing speeds. And like part of me is wondering why. So we did some research and we're excited to share that with you.
And we essentially what Aaron, just to continue off of what Aaron said, we're questioning like how and why. Like, well, why? I think it's pretty obvious. Every city naturally wants to develop. They want to be ahead of the game. They want to be influential. They want to be like, since globalization is a huge, huge concept in our time, they want to take advantage of globalization, being a world city, being on the forefront uh, on, from a global stance. And but how? How did they get
Yeah.
there so quickly? Now
Yeah. So
there's some before we go into the tech, Aaron. I quickly wanted to say a couple things that
sure.
led up to this, especially in the late '80s to the '90s. Okay, so I think this is one thing that we have to keep in mind. Okay, and we will provide these articles that we've read through and that we're sorting going along with during this podcast. So let's keep in mind 1979 Jebel Ali Port, trading port, opened, which eased travel to and from Dubai. Trades grew at an exponential rate. This also helped in attracting considerable overseas investment. Okay.
Yeah. And then one of the big things that brought wealth to the area was also the creation of the airport in 1971. So this
Yeah.
was a bit before the port. But in 1985, Emirates Airlines was launched, and Emirates Airlines is one of the biggest airlines in the world today. So, considering that their headquarters is in Dubai, basically at this point, you could see how this rises profits and rises money in the area.
Now, another thing that I found interesting is Sheikh Mohammed at that time launched the internet and sought to create a new Dubai. I want, I don't know if you can answer this, but I'd want to go a little bit deeper into, not during this episode, but I'm just curious, like, when did the internet actually release? Do you know?
That part I'm not sure about either. Like the article says, launched the internet. It might be because it was rural before. Well, not rural.
Maybe.
It was urban and there was no internet access everywhere. But I think part of the plan was to have Wi-Fi accessible to everybody, right?
Hmm.
In some cases, it was accessible, but not accessible to everybody. Like
Yeah.
I was reading something and I saw that there was free Wi-Fi on the beach. Like that's perfect for the Instagrammers of life, right? You could
It's a
Instagram
God
the
gift
sunset.
for
It's a god
Instagrammers.
gift, exactly, right? So launching the internet, and I think the concept of launching a new Dubai, there was something wrong with it before, and it needed improvement. And he
Yeah.
saw that this was the way to be doing it by investing in internet and transport.
Yeah, and we can't forget the pinnacle moment in 2010. Burj Khalifa became the tallest man-made structure on Earth. It's insane,
Yeah,
it's beautiful, and honestly, I would not want to go all the way up on top because it hits the clouds, and I think it's a residential space, if I'm not mistaken. And I've heard stories of like if you're living on the top, you're literally like in the clouds. That's scary.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
And I
So
think part of it is like when you have these massive buildings, you have the pearls that were there before, a very strong port and airport. This is drawing people and money into the area.
mhm.
Um, so when you have this, it makes financial investments easier to do. People are traveling all over the world to come see Dubai, to see the big building, to fly in the sky, and to ride the uh, Ferrari roller coaster, right?
Yeah, and you know what I find when after reading this article and thinking a little bit more about the Bay, they sort of went through like so we can make the statement that I think one thing the viewers can take away from this as well is that in the 80s and 90s they focused on their economy, they focused on ways of growing their economy through trade, through oil, um,
But also through transport,
through
right?
transport,
It's
and
not like
then
they invested in Bitcoin. They invested in their port and their airport.
essentially, and when the economy boomed exponentially, then they invested in, like you said, their airports, their architectural designs all over the city. They just beautified. Let's just say they beautified the city from the late '90s to 2000. I'm going to say around like 2015, and then they focused more on technology. This is the
Yeah,
age that this is the time period now which they're expanding on their technology really really quick, and it's not only just products and services towards their citizens, but it's also for the overall city experience that this is being built. And I think they've always targeted this notion that we need to develop according to um, the international standpoint, where we want to attract foreigners, we want to attract foreign
yeah,
investments, we want to attract tourism, which they've been doing a great job at.
yeah. And I
And
want to add on
yeah.
like attracting foreigners and attracting wealthy. They were in 2002. The Sheikh Mohammed issued a land reform that allowed foreigners to own real estate in Dubai.
Mhm.
This was the first in any Gulf state. So what this did was it actually led to speculation in the market.
Yeah.
And this speculation led to the city to become an elite place for oligarchs and not monarchs, sorry, for oligarchs and for people who are wealthy. So you're seeing wealthy build, and then more wealthy people are going to build, and then you're going to see a whole some people who are wealthy building in this area.
Amazing. And so they've just created, essentially, with this being said, they've just created a, a multiple business opportunities for international that opened up to the international realm, that just allowed foreign investment to come into play with ease. There was no,
Yeah,
and this is where we can make arguments about how they've eased up on that. Their policies are not so restrictive compared to what we see here in the West in terms of investment. Because if you wanted to invest, let's say in the United States, right, whether it be in property, now it's not, now from what I understand from my experiences, that if let's say you were to invest in properties in New Jersey, right, real estate development, then see, the process is not complicated, right? But there is still a process, and Dubai's process is apparently much easier than what you'd have to go through compared to a state that's really easy in the United States, such as New Jersey. So I just think that it just, with all this development happening at such a fast rate, that it just makes it more of an attractive investment to foreign
yeah,
investors,
yeah, for
right?
sure.
And
And I
should we
think the
go?
fact that it's positioned itself as a leader in the area, right? So in terms of like they're investing in companies, but when you have companies, you need transport systems as well. So Dubai wants to be the leading country in smart intermodal mobility. So, like I said, it's not only the buses, the trains, it's the buses, trains, the gondolas, the drones that are carrying you from place to place. It's literally like the Jetsons, right? Like you have all
Mhm.
these flying stuff too, and new things are constantly being tested. Um, and what's also cool is that by 2030, the Sheikh wants that 25% of trips in Dubai will be smart and driverless, right? There's so many problems with driverless technologies here in North America. This is a goal that they have by 2030, which is very ambitious.
Extremely ambitious, and
Yeah,
at the rate they're going, I think it could be realistic. It has the potential to be realistic, but see, it makes you question. I know, as a, wait, that's your dad in the background. I got distracted for a sec.
yeah.
But anyways, no, and that just makes me question that: do we have to ease up on our policies, on our regulations, to allow um, technological implementation within our own cities, whether it be with
I,
transportation services or just
I don't know
regular
if it's a matter of
conveniences?
loosening up our regulations, but what you see in Dubai is that there's many plans. This is
Mhm.
only some of them. They have a national employment strategy in the country as a whole. they have the United Arab Emirates, and then they have the United Arab Emirates strategy for artificial intelligence, the national strategy for advanced innovation, the United Arab Emirates strategy for the fourth industrial revolution. I could keep going on and on, but all of these scream high tech, right? Like only this year in Montreal have we actually made progress on an open data charter. We're lacking when it comes to this. Like we don't have a national cybersecurity strategy. We don't have a strategy, a national strategy for artificial intelligence. And I think this is something that helps plan what could come next.
You want to? I want to add something onto the something that I recently heard. They have a minister of artificial intelligence that
They
got
have a
appointed in
minister of
2017.
artificial intelligence. Wow.
Like, think about that. How ahead they are, even in their
Yeah.
positions within the government. They're expanding on positions that are necessary if you're taking this step forward. And it makes me question one thing. With all the transportation infrastructure that they're going to create, for example, the drones carrying human beings from place to place. Now, what would be crazy to think about? How airspace would be essentially being used. The rules and
Yeah.
restrictions. We have restrictions on flying a remote control drone. Think about that. There's heavy restrictions on that, and they're very unclear. There's not a
Yeah.
lot of info.
They're
You have to
like
go dive
they're very
in.
yeah, you have to dive into it. You have to know which municipality you're part of. You also like in some cases, especially if you're flying near an airport, you have to have a drone license. And if you're flying in an indoor space, you have to have a drone operator,
Yep.
right? There's people who train and learn the ways of being a drone, not of flying drones, not being a drone. And it's just really cool that this is what's happening, right? And
It's
Mo,
it's
I wanted to speak on another point.
yeah.
You mentioned how much transit's increasing in the area. I just want to give a number behind ridership. Ridership increased from 168 million people per year in 2006 to 588 million in 2018. So it increased by a factor of it increased by 11%, which is crazy.
Mhm. It and sometimes I question with Dubai's development, is it too good to be true? Is it
Yeah,
actually realistic? Is it something that, because we have to understand too, the way this is what things that I love to question that I've discussed and I've discussed with Aaron before. And this reference and this information comes from what we've learned in class and whatever research we've conducted before that. Now, media portrayal is a huge topic that, yes, the media is spoken about these days quite frequently just because of the current events that are going on here. I'm not going to mention any specifics just for the sake of the topic, but we have to understand the role the media plays and in the way they portray, well, the way countries portray themselves on an international standpoint, right? Because there's a lot of news that they want to present, that they see valuable, that will attract investors, that will make them look good and reputable on
yeah,
the
for
international
sure.
stage. So
And like
are there things that we don't know?
Before Mo sent me the article, I didn't really know that Dubai was a leader, and I guess it's my own fault as a consumer for not like looking into things happening around the world. But yeah, the media doesn't always cover everything. Like this is one thing that I'm actually surprised about that wasn't really covered in the media. Dubai won the 2020 Expo, right? And expos are a big deal these days. Well, they've been historically. Like if you look at the 1967 Expo, that's what got Montreal's metro in place. The one in Vancouver, I think it was in 1980. I don't remember the date off the top of my head. 1980 or 2000? No, 2000 was Sydney. In the 1980s, it's what kicked off the SkyTrain in Vancouver. So the World Expo, even though it's been delayed to 2021, it's still very impressive that it's been and it's selected in Dubai.
No, I'm just reading. I'm reading about AI and the 5G space um, that's being implemented as literally as we're speaking right now. Because another article that I found that I sort of dove into is probably the most recent from November 2020.
Yeah,
And one thing that amazed me is just the fact that the most awaited, so I'll read this, right? The most awaited mode of trade and transport is the upcoming launch of Hyperloop technology, Aaron. This is you,
Mm,
my friend, from
yeah,
Dubai to Abu Dhabi, which will cut the travel time to just 12 minutes and will run at unimaginable speeds with the highest safety standards and sustainability at the core. You know, it's funny because you know what surprises me when we hear about sustainability, we hear we're under the assumption that Western society does a better job with sustainability and thinks about more sustainable factors in their development and the design plans. But you know, I think we're underestimating places like Singapore, places like Dubai, and how they're also thinking about sustainable development as well. Because you know, we noticed this trend that when in North America, at least over time, when we were urbanizing, we focused on just the urbanization fact. Like we just wanted to expand on our architectural designs within our buildings, the technologies, the transportation infrastructure. We just wanted to release, you know, just make our economy moving, right? Um, but there, and then later on, we started focusing on sustainability measures and how they can be implemented. But what's interesting about Dubai right now and Singapore is that from the get-go, they've focused on development along with sustainability, keeping
yeah,
sustainability in mind. So
that's
we
definitely important.
so we have to sort of take a step back and we have to think about, are we really going to be leading in these factors in the future? Because keep in mind, even in developing countries, the rate of urbanization is absolutely insane compared to the rate of urbanization that we have going on here. Yes, there's problems of uneven development in developing countries, in third world countries, however you want to classify them as. But see, if their rate of urbanization is much faster than what rate of urbanization Western society has gone through, what makes you think that they're going to lag behind on the sustainability factor as well? Maybe they could catch up in that realm as well, right?
Yeah,
So these are things that I think about when I look at places like Dubai and when I compare it to third world countries, when I think compare it to the Western society right now. So, yeah, do you have anything to add on that front? This was just thoughts that
I don't
came in my
really
head
have
after reading.
anything to add on it, but it's very interesting what's happening, and I think it's just worth mentioning that and drawing your attention to what's happening in Dubai. The fact that it won the World Expo shows that there's a lot happening in the area. So it's just like an area worth paying attention to a little more, especially from a sustainable standpoint. Like they're in the middle of a desert and you still see a lot of green, like in their plans and in their designs you see a lot of green too. It's not only about transport, there's green behind the transport too, and I think that's important as well.
And I'm really excited to share this article, specifically the Dubai after Expo 2020 and what their plans are. It's a really nice, clear read where they give you a list of how Dubai's economy will change, how it'll affect the real estate market, what is District 2020, essentially the plan. And when you look at these plans, dude, it's literally coming out of Star Trek. It's insane.
Yeah, coming out of Star Trek, yeah,
Like it's
or
literally
Coruscant,
a Star Trek city,
Star
like
Wars.
on Earth.
Yeah,
Oh man, it's actually insane.
and
It's
look,
really
like if you
exciting.
look at District 20, like at the center it looks like there's a Death Star. This is more Star Wars than Star Trek, but it looks like there's a
Exactly.
Death Star.
Yeah.
Just my take, being
No,
a
and
Star Wars
your
fan that
take
I
is
am.
definitely correct because I'm here really thinking, since I'm a Star Trek guy, my inner Star Trek just came out when I remember watching Picard 2020.
Ooh,
Oh man, it just, yeah. But like, hear this, right? Like for example, like Dubai's economy, for example, just bringing up the first point, after 2020 will be proven to be technology based rather than oil based, along with the entire country. That's quick, man. That's
yeah,
insane.
yeah,
It'll
and
it'll
it's
boost
expected.
Dubai's economy by 33.4 billion.
Yeah, this is hosting the expo, and normally, like hosting expos, hosting the Olympics, they tend to like deteriorate the economy, especially in the Montreal context with the Olympic Stadium.
Like, Aaron, when you look at this, right, you know what I think about? I just think about like I'm thinking about the bigger picture here, right? Like this is all cool stuff, like all cutting edge technology, improvement, development, rate of urbanization, architectural designs. they're clearly highly advanced, and I
Yeah,
think that's what most of our viewers are understanding right now, right?
yeah,
And I always tell, and we always want to tell our viewers that go ahead and do your own research, right? Whatever we find fascinating, we just come on the episode and talk about. But I think I love questioning things, right? As a reader, and I try to think about the society that I'm living in, and I really try to compare and contrast and see and dig a little deeper. And the way I wanted to dig a little deeper right now is, do you think that I'm just talking about citizens in Dubai compared to the Montreal context, right? Do you think citizens are more involved or more knowledgeable on what's going on in terms of development? Like, do you think the government does a better job in informing their citizens about their plans? Because look, we have a various number of plans that are released, that are on the internet, like such as our master plans, right? But nobody really, like, I don't know anyone outside of our field or a lot of students within our field actually who take a look and reference these plans. It's all out there, the information is there. But do you think that the UAE the UAE, the state, does a better job at providing this information? Like, what do you
like
think it is?
I don't know, but I think part of it is that could be a reason, but I think part of it is the innovation culture that's in the area, right? Um, Based on what I found, Dubai hosts one of the biggest and most developed scientific research centers in terms of smart transportation. So I think it's really like, okay, they have a research center, but it's a matter of this is where their focus is. And we do have research centers across Canada, but like we have them in artificial intelligence right here in Montreal, actually, big artificial intelligence hub. We have fisheries. We have like very important work being done on fisheries in the oceans. We have what's happening. We have like a lot of space technology happening
Mhm.
in Canada. And I think like it's innovation culture, right? We need innovation hubs. We need knowledge sharing initiatives where people in different fields could collaborate, get along, and communicate, and also the policies and strategies that favor innovation, right? So when you have like national innovation strategy, the strategy for artificial intelligence, national employment strategy, environmental education and awareness strategy, all of this is tied to education, training, research, and development, which is linked to higher innovation. So I think it's just like they have a more favorable environment to innovate. And we need to remember that we need to be able to take risks every now and then,
I
play
agree.
with it,
I agree. And
play with
I
a
just think,
concept, test it.
and you know what I remember about Dubai, especially when visiting? Whenever you'd ask a question about a site or any questions about like new development, new projects that are worth seeing, or new forms of development that are open to tourism or to the public, right? You know, the person you tend to ask, who could be a stranger on the streets, a local, um, they seem super. And you know what I've noticed in my few interactions there? Extremely well informed on what's going on in these spaces, what's expected, and they give you more information than you need. You may be asking for directions, but they'll literally give you a small summary of what's actually happening in these sites that are open to the public, in these conventions. So it's just, I'm just here, and this is just my like my just a guess on my end. It's just my two take, that I just think the public there is more well informed, and they have more of an interest in what's going on in in their surroundings, as opposed to here, because I feel like people here tend to dwell on what's happening in their lives. They don't really, sure, cool, like the new Champlain Bridge came, right? But then you know what I heard that was being spoken about, that frequently came up, and you may have heard this as well. How, what they're going to do with the old bridge? Are they going to detonate it? Are they going to? There's going to
Yeah.
be a huge watch party. There's going to be like, it's going to be like fireworks. It's like, okay, like people find those things attractive, but nobody asked about how the REM, literally the middle lane of the new Champlain Bridge, how the REM is going to go through its connection points. Like, nobody cared about asking those questions. All people were excited about was, what is it getting detonated, the whole bridge? I'm like, what,
Yeah.
dude? It's like, are we
And like
focusing on the wrong things?
even with the rate of development, like it's hard in the Montreal context. Like there's so many developments happening, and it's like where do you turn your attention to, right? Like it depends on your interest at the end of the day, but you can look left, right, and center. You'll find a project that you're genuinely interested in, right? Like for me, it's seeing the things on the RAM when they go like boom, 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 and like when they're making the track in the West Island, and then like going a week later and seeing the fact that it
Hmm.
moved and there's like cement blocked, and then I'm like, oh, one day I'll see a train zipping by on that path. It's really cool to me. I'm not excited by the detonation that comes with it, but
Yeah, yeah, because I think like see like I get why we wouldn't be interested in that because I think since we're in the field, we look forward to how newer infrastructure will be implemented within our
yeah,
spaces. Like, what's the approach? What's the idea behind it? Is it feasible? Is it not feasible? How can it be improved? Who are the stakeholders behind it? We have these types of questions that we've raised with whatever we've learned these last 2 to 3 years and our own self-interest, right? So, and I honestly don't know how to get like other people outside of the field. I'm just talking about the general public more interested in these projects, raising up questions, being involved, wanting to
what I think it comes down to is you as a user of space. Like we're the ones who plan and think about like how people use space. But when you're sitting on a bus, when you're sitting on a metro, just ask yourself the question like, why do I sit like this? Why and just like take a break from your music, take a break from your podcast, and just like take a moment to appreciate, like, I really like that smell. Where's it coming from? And just like be curious in the spaces that you're in.
yeah, and essentially, I think there's a lot of learning points that I think what we need to understand as a Western society, or what our government needs to really realize, our leaders, our political leaders, our influencers, whether it be YouTubers, whether it be actual politicians, doesn't matter who, people who raise awareness, organizations are looking to move development forward. We have to like take a step back and we have to realize because there are in certain aspects we are lacking, right? We're
Yeah,
not picture perfect. We could be better. We could take more of an interest, even, and not only putting this on leaders, but as a society in general. Like we all have to work together towards a progressive goal to develop, to um, move forward, to make, and because development will lead to better livelihood if done properly, right?
yeah, for
It's for
sure,
the greater good.
for sure.
And I think we have to look at other places as an example, like Dubai, like Singapore, even third world development, and see what's rising, what's making their rate of urbanization much quicker, right?
Yeah,
Like, so yeah. Aaron, any last points that you want to bring, or?
just get out in space and like think
Mhm.
about space and ask questions about the space, and then you'll just be a more informed person at the end of it. Be
So,
curious.
yeah. And yeah, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. We had a good time reading these articles.
Yes.
We basically took these articles, we formulated some points, some key points. We weren't going to go over each and every single point in the article. We will let the viewers do that. If they're interested, we'll post links under the description. And obviously, and we want to hear you guys like comment on what you thought about the way we think, the way the approach that we would be interested in, and
Yeah.
it just raised a lot of discussion points for us.
Yeah.
We questioned a lot
And
of
like
different things.
for those who want to visit Dubai because it's like Picard 2020 or like Coruscant, check it out. Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
May the force
And
be with you.
may the force be with you. And I almost broke my laptop. And yeah.
I can't do it. It's a work in
No,
progress.
it's fine. It's fine. And you know what? One last thing I want to mention is if you want to see what else Dubai is doing right, look at the way they're handling COVID. Just read up on
Yeah.
what they're doing. Not going to get into it now, but that's an interesting talking point as well. If you're not interested in technology and the way they've advanced, look at the way they handle the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's a lot to learn from.
Have a great week, everyone.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Stay safe.